This is Absolutely Essendon with our special edition episode. I feel like we've been away for ages.
Yeah.
I've had some withdrawal symptoms. So much has been happening. But have we got a treat for you today? We are bringing in the big gun, the heavy artillery.
The big gun.
We're a little bit excited.
I've got to say, this is one of these milestone days in our short history as being YouTubers, content producers.
It is
when you can bring in one of the big names in YouTube around the world in Everything Essendon. And I mean, he's a legend. Everyone loves him. And this, I think, is, if we're not terribly mistaken, the first time he's revealed that beautiful, handsome face of his.
Right. So, yes, without further
ladies and gentlemen,
yes, we'd like to introduce from the Everything Essendon channel, Felix. Felix, how you going?
Hi, Felix.
Thank you guys for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I said off air that if you guys had started your channel before me, I wouldn't be doing mine because I just wanted to get another Essendon channel on YouTube. So, but I'm glad that we can collab, get together, and hopefully do this more often as well. That should be
very kind of you to say.
Yeah.
Don't believe you 1 second, but very kind of you to say. We're touched by it, and yes, I agree. I'm glad we've been able to collab. So
this is like a mergers and acquisitions here, isn't it? I mean, the two channels. I feel sorry for the boys over at Don the Sash.
I think they'll be fine.
They are going to be a little nervous with us coming now with big Felix in our corner. But no, we love Don the Sash, of course, and
good fun.
Everyone adds a piece to the puzzle.
They do. So anyway, why are we here today?
Yes.
We're here because we're calling on Felix and Everything Essendon's incredible knowledge of how all things trade, all things free agency, all things draft, and that's great because we don't really know much about that at all.
That's right.
So we brought Felix in today to kind of educate us and hopefully impart some exciting news about what the Bombers are doing in the off season, in particular with the free agency, which I think Felix has just started, right?
Yeah, it started on Friday, last Friday. So that runs, I don't know why. It runs a few days earlier than the trade period. I can't explain that one to you. But yeah, that's just kicked off yesterday. It'll continue until next Monday. And then the trade period goes on for an extra 2 days.
Right.
It's the trade period's kind of following behind it.
They overlap a little bit, right?
Yeah. So they go at the same time for the most part, except that 2-day little period. Yeah.
So tell me, just for those that don't know, with free agency, and I'm looking at you, Joe, it's pretty much, there's two forms of free agent, right? There's a restricted and an unrestricted. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, so restricted free agent or Todd Goldstein, because we are aiming to get a restricted and unrestricted free agent through the door this trade period.
Right.
So you've got a restricted free agent who has been on the list for longer. They get paid less than the star players. There are certain criteria that we don't really know as much about. The AFL decide them at the start of every season. With a restricted free agent, it just means they can walk to wherever they want. You can give Todd Goldstein a packet of chips and he'll come through the doors. Whereas an unrestricted free agent or Ben Mackay, if their club choose to, I guess, keep them on their books or they want to keep them on their books, they can match the contract offer that we put forward to the player, and it forces a trade, makes it all the more complicated. So we've got Todd Goldstein, who's a restricted free agent, and then you've got Jade Gresham and Ben Mackay, who are unrestricted, who we are also looking at.
Right. So it comes down to then just really what we're prepared to pay, and if the player's in agreement with that, they can more or less just come across without the need for any draft picks or players to be involved in a swap. It's a pure salary play. And then the other club, if it's a restricted free agent, has the right to match that bid or that offer and then prevent the player from leaving if I understand that correctly.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. Restricted. Yeah, I got my words jumped up. Restricted.
So Goldstein is an unrestricted.
Yes, unrestricted. Yeah,
exactly. So on that point, so who have we got coming in? And
do we want to do a bit of a wrap up of the Crichton medal? Just a bit of how the year ended. Do we want to do that, or is there anything?
It was on the running sheet.
Well, but we never work well with running sheets. That's why we don't use.
But why
we
don't follow them? Maybe because we've started it, we might come back to.
All right. Okay. All right.
So who? Let's just cut to the chase. So who's going going to be joining the Bombers, to the best of our knowledge, through a free agency?
Or Todd Goldstein would be one. If you nominate the club and you're an unrestricted free agent, there's no real reason why you don't join, unless we completely butcher our contract negotiations. But I'd assume that they'd already be done if he's nominated us.
But why hasn't that been announced in that case? So if it's a simple case of him saying, I'm going to Essendon, why haven't they not formally announced that?
Yeah, that's what surprised me. I thought that would have been one of the first deals done. So we had a few on Friday. We had James Jordan, who we were linked with before. Yep. He's a unrestricted free agent. He joined Sydney really easily. I would have thought that the Todd Goldstein deal would have been done, but I feel like it's probably just a Monday or Tuesday ongoing. It won't be ongoing too much.
Negotiating some stuff.
Maybe jumper number.
Yeah. Dental plan,
which locker he gets. Yeah,
he wants Draper's too. He wants number 2. Draper needs to find a new number. Yeah, it's tough, but no real reason to panic if you are an Essendon fan. That would get done really quickly.
I would think so.
Okay,
and the big one out of all of this, I guess, is Ben Mackay. There has been some talk that if we don't put up enough salary that pushes the compensation to a first round draft pick, that North may play hardball and match the offer and prevent Mackay from coming. What's your knowledge on that?
Yeah, well, the funny thing about this one is that no one really knows too much about what Essendon need to offer to give North the correct compensation. So North want a pick 3 because if a free agent leaves and they're getting paid enough from their new club, they get compensated by the AFL. North want the highest compensation you can get, which is band 1, which will give them a top 5 pick at the draft. If they don't get that, word is they will match the offer and force a trade.
I mean, are they just calling our bluff on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if there was a proper contract on offer to Mackay at North Melbourne anyway, because that situation was going on for so long. And I think that's what Essendon will probably try and throw to if a trade is forced. But the issue is, even with that bluff, you don't want to force a trade anyway, because we're not giving any picks up for Ben Mackay if we get him through free agency. So North get compensated by the AFL. That doesn't come from us at all. If a trade is forced, we're going to have to give up some draft capital that we don't really want to give up as a young club.
So the win round of all of this will be Ben Mackay, I guess, because, as 100%. Essendon will probably go, okay, well, let's just be careful. Give him his 800,000, guaranteed North the pick number 3, and he comes to the club, no problems. And I hear a lot of people going, oh, well, why are we paying Ben Mackay so much money? I mean,
that was me. Is that my voice?
That was you, I think.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't your voice? Yeah. Well, it might have been when you were 13. But who cares how much we pay, right? It's not our money.
Well, it is our money if we're paying through. It's out of our salary cap, but it's all. I guess the question is, would you rather pay an extra, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to get him through, to get him to walk easily, or would you underpay or pay him what would be fair and also give up draft capital? I think, either way, you're going to be overpaying him a little bit, because forcing a trade, we're going to have to throw away a lot of draft picks.
Well, you'd think he'd be at least a late first round draft pick, wouldn't you? In a normal.
Yeah, that's what they'd say, and the talk around the compensation being a top 5 won't help trade negotiations either. If we then, if Dodoro then comes out and offers a late 3rd rounder or whatever,
but that generous, would he, Dodoro? He'd offer maybe
a late third rounder
and.
And Tex Wanganeen, I don't know. But the good news is that our coach Brad Scott was working with the AFL last year. So if anyone's going to know what to offer Ben Mackay, or I guess what the minimum contract would be, it would be Brad Scott.
Good point. And so given the scenario that the club has sort of ended the year do you think, like, whether it's Dodoro or Matt Rosa, or I don't know if he started there.
I think he has.
Well, if he has, do you think, were they given like a shopping list saying, hey, go get that, don't come home without it? Don't tell me there's no strawberries. Find them. Like, do you think?
Yeah, Ben Mackay's the strawberries. You need those.
Right.
And I don't know how closely the club would work with Brad Scott, for example, and I think the fact that we're bringing in so many North players and players that Brad Scott was close to tells me that he's probably having influence on this as well.
That's what I think as well.
Getting the band back together.
It just seems like a massive coincidence.
I'd only if you bring Keith Gregg back, I'll tell you. Now, so let's assume Mackay goes through. Then there's Jade Gresham. A lot of talk about Gresham. I don't know if he's formally nominated Essendon as his club of choice. What's your hearing on that?
Yeah, well, he hasn't nominated us yet, but every journo across the land seems to think that he's going to join Essendon. I don't know if it's that easy, because if Mackay's compensation situation was tricky, Gresham's is like a whole nother level, because St Kilda, for starters, Gresham won't be earning a top 5 pick for compensation. People think it'll be a band 2 or band 3, which would be a mid to late first round or an early second round.
Right.
And St Kilda are more than willing to force a trade. This one, I think, is a bluff, because they don't really want him at the club too much. He's eating up a lot of their salary. We would be paying him a lot less than they would. People say it's around $200,000 less. So this is another tricky one, because this is a situation where you can probably justify not overpaying him to get him through the door, because we need a big key back. We need Ben Mackay. I don't know if Jade Gresham is the type of player that we need at the club. He's a good improvement on what we have our class in the forward line, but he's not what we need. So I think this one could easily be forced into a trade.
So Felix, let's talk a bit more about then. There's a bit of dialogue around paying him overs in order to trigger a band 1 compensation for St Kilda, being pick 13. And then the discussion is leading towards Essendon then trading Dylan Shield for that pick 13. Is there any likelihood of something of that nature going to happen, or is that just wishful thinking?
I like it. I think that's it's probably not going to be exactly that, because I don't know if we can, Dylan Shields 30, 31, 30. I don't know how old he is exactly.
I think he's 31. Next season.
Yeah. He hasn't played a full season since he came to the club in 2019.
Yeah.
So he's always had injury problems. This year especially, he barely got out on the park. And even when he did play, he was so unfit.
He's just had a bit of surgery, I think, in the last few days, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that came at a horrible time for the negotiations. So sending over pick 13.
Toenail.
Hey.
Just a checkup.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can really say that pick 13 for Dylan Shield is fair. So there's going to be more to it, but that's what Essendon seem to be.
That would be with us paying his salary, is my understanding.
Yes. So we would be paying.
It makes some sense of St Kilda. Let's say it was 13, they get Shield for nothing, effectively. Yeah.
Yeah, and a good one to look at with that is, I guess, Brodie Grundy, who is a all-Australian ruck. He's, he was, when he left Collingwood, one of the best rucks in the comp, right under Max Gawn. And Collingwood were paying a big part of his salary, but he still only went for pick 20, 25 or 26, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it's hard to justify them doing that, paying Grundy's salary, one of the best rucks in the comp, a position that's hard to find as well in a ruckman, and paying a whole 10 picks later than what we'd be getting for Dylan Shield.
Right. Did you get any of that?
Man. Have you got a whiteboard, Felix? Because
I thought algebra was hard. So now one of the names that I've also seen bandied around is Reece Matheson from Brisbane. Is he a free agent, or is that a trade scenario?
No, that was happening a lot last year. I haven't seen much about Reece Matheson.
Breaking news, just coming down the wire.
Really?
Yeah.
From your sources?
From my sources.
Right.
Oh, I barely remember him playing this year at Brisbane.
He's a Dodoro. He's a perfect Dodoro target.
Clean cat.
Someone who doesn't play much.
Oh no, I wouldn't mind him, or I wouldn't have, like a few years ago. Him at the club would have been exactly what you need for these young players that to set the standards. He's known as the barometer, Reece Matheson. And he's just a tough nut as well, which is what you need. If that was to happen, which I don't know if it is, especially because we have so many deals going on at the moment, it would either be through the delisted free agency, because I don't know if he has a contract on offer, or it would be a very, very cheap trade because he doesn't really feature too much at Brisbane anymore.
Oh, okay.
All right. So any other free agency moves that you anticipate happening, or is that pretty much it for us?
What have we covered? Goldstein, Mackay, Gresham. That's of the free agents. That's about it. And that's good because we're not giving away any draft picks for that. We're just paying. Well, we're paying players too much, which we can afford to do because we have such a big salary cap space. So we're very big players in the free agency period, which is ideally where you want to be doing your playing.
So if we talk now about Joe, have you got anything else on free agency?
No.
I know you're quite the almanac.
Shut up. I just wanted to know what success looks like, but I think Felix has just explained that that's pretty much what's out there for us. There's nothing else to scoop up.
Going out the door from our side, what's the news there?
Yeah, well, we obviously have two players who have requested trades already. We'll start with Brendan Zerk-Thatcher because that happened first. He wants to go home. You can't really blame him for that.
Going back to Adelaide.
He's from Felix is from.
Yeah, he's coming to see me.
Fully understand. A beautiful place. It's like God's waiting room. Okay. Sorry, so he's heading back home to friends and family?
Yes, so we had a contract on offer, a multi-year deal, because he was an important player to us. He's you've seen the fan base turn on him a little bit, which is always what happens when a player leaves. But he had a really tough role as the sole big key back for us against some really tough opposition.
Tom Hawkins, bitch.
Yeah. He still has nightmares.
He was good at that.
I still have nightmares about that day. That was bad.
Yeah. You reckon you're having nightmares? Imagine what poor old Brandon's having.
Poor Brandon.
He's curled up in the fetal position.
Yeah.
But that's at least what we get from Ben Mackay as a big body defender who we can trust to play on Tom Hawkins and free up players like Jordan Ridley because...
Or hope Tom Hawkins retires.
Not another year, but anyway.
Never. But yeah, Zerk-Thatcher, he's gone back to Adelaide. This is a funny one because I feel like this is Dodoro leaving his lasting legacy. There's been rumours that he's asking Port Adelaide for a first round pick, which it's hard to back that one up for Dodoro. You've got a key defender who's had the most goals on him kicked across the whole league in 2023, and you want to get a first round pick.
It's hard to pack that up into something.
I mean,
something.
Isn't there a point where you just feel embarrassed asking for the, a first round pick for Brandon Zerk-Thatcher? You just feel like an absolute.
No, but it's like the used car salesman, and the car's got like 220,000 Ks on it. He goes, mate, they're country miles.
I thought they would be the worst miles.
No,
but the better miles.
Yeah, because you're not stuck at traffic lights and using the kangaroos and the brakes. No, they're good miles. Anyway,
all right. So Zerk-Thatcher, he's had enough of Bomberland. He wants to go back to sunny Adelaide. What do we get in return? Putting aside the crazy hope of a first round draft pick, what's a realistic? There's been some talk about Xavier Dersmer from Port perhaps being involved in the trade. I like the sound of that. Yeah, well, I do, but he's had a bit of an injury issue. I think he did his knee earlier in the year.
Right.
But he's not a bad player, sort of a wingman type player. What do you think about that one, Felix?
Yeah, well, it's such a fascinating trade because Port already have 3 other deals to get through. So we've got 3 free agents. Port have 3 trade requests, which means they need to give away draft capital, draft capital that they don't have because they did so much trading last year for Jason Horne-Francis. So their earliest pick in the draft this year is pick 38, and they still need to get Jordan Sweet and Asava Radaglia through the door. So I guess that's why Xavier Dersmer's name has been raised, because Port really don't have enough draft capital to afford 3 players like this through a
Mm.
trade. The interesting discussion with Dersma is who is worth more out of Zerk Thatcher and Dersma, because Dersma's definitely shown more through the years, but Zerk Thatcher is that that position that's so much harder to find, that key defender. So it's not as easy as a straight swap. Dersma's already toured the facility. Apparently, he's keen on joining Essendon.
Has he done his knee already? Going around the hangers?
Yeah,
Has he
another failed medical. Yeah,
don't let him go anywhere near the surface. Goodness me!
Yeah.
What happened to that guy from Western Australia that we got mid-season last year? Last season, Jaden Hunter.
Oh, Jaden Hunter
lasted 2 minutes before he did his back.
Yeah.
The lower back issue. Yeah.
The hanger's not the issue. It's the players.
Mate, they don't even insure them anymore going out there.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So Dersma, now I think
that's good intel.
The interesting thing about Xavier Dersma is he's got a younger brother, right? Whose name is Zane, I think. Zane Dersma.
Xavier and Zane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's an X and a Z.
Sure.
I know they sound the same. Yes. Now, Zane Dersma in this year's national draft being widely tipped as a top 5 pick, or at least to go in the top 5. Is there a play on here? Are we looking at concocting some incredible magic to land not only Xavier, but then get his brother as well? Because from all reports, his brother is very, very good.
Yeah, his brother is good. Because I'm from South Australia, I follow Port and Adelaide quite closely. Xavier is this, I guess, smaller wingman type player who he's not limited by his skills, but he's not as eye catching and skillful as some of the best players in the draft. Even though he was taken in the first round, but his brother Zane is like a next level talent. He's not going to fall outside the top 5. Yeah. He's a forward that can play midfield. He's had some crazy games where he's kicked a bag of goals to go along with 25 to 30 disposals. It happens a lot. He's a very, very good player. There have been talks of us trading up to potentially get a pick early in the draft to get Zane through the door. I don't know how legit this can be, because the earliest pick we can really get is I'd say Gold Coast's pick 4. Yeah. And even with that, which turns into pick 5 because they'll be matching an academy bid, it'll be unlikely to see him fall to pick 5. I think he's as good as gone in pick 3 or 4. He's one of the very best in this coming draft. Yeah. So it's
to just look at that a little closer then. So a lot of talk around Gold Coast needing draft picks, or if you like, points to match bids against their academy kids. They've got a raft of fantastic young academy kids. What is it going to take then to get that pick 4 realistically? It's obviously going to be our pick 8 plus something. Is that a future first round, or is it a player? What do you think could bring that deal to a head?
Yeah, well, Gold Coast more than anything need draft capital to match these bids, because to match a bid, they have 3 players in the first round likely to go in the first round.
That's from their academy, right?
Yes, yeah. And their academy is different to ours. They can access these players. So if you remember Anthony Mankara last year, there was lots of talk around whether or not he would fall in the top 40, because if he falls inside it, we can't match a bid. But Gold Coast and any of the Queensland and New South Wales clubs, they can match bids anywhere. So Gold Coast have 3 academy players in the first round. Let's say we want Jed Walter, for example. We match a bid on him. They can say, nah, we'll take him and give draft capital to the AFL. So they lose their later draft picks to get a player earlier in the draft. So they don't want...
They match the points. I think there's a discount involved as well, isn't there? But effectively, if Essendon bids for one of their academy kids, they can then match that with lower draft picks that amount to the same value, less whatever. I think it's 15% discount or something like that.
Yeah, and that's why they don't want pick 4, because pick 4 will be coming before another player that they'll be matching on anyway. So they'll be losing it with their first bid.
Yeah.
So they want to get rid of their earliest picks to have them later in the draft so they can just use them as points and potentially get something for next year as well. You know, we might offer up, you know, some draft capital this year, but give them a future selection so they can have some a bigger draft hand next year. Yeah. So really it's a great situation for them because all they're really doing is getting late draft picks to bring in players they already know they're going to get.
Yeah.
But what it means is that every club in the AFL will be wanting to deal with them to get pick 4 because it's such a top-heavy draft this year. There's only really a top 10 that I'm keen for, and inside that top 10, there's a top 5 or 6. So that pick 4 is like gold. Every club wants it. It's why we're now in talks to grab it to get Xavier Dersma. But it's going to take a lot because Melbourne are coming. That's everyone believes Melbourne to be the club they'll be dealing with for pick 4.
Right.
And our draft hand this year isn't that great. It's a pick every round, which could change if we get something decent for Brandon Zerk-Thatcher or Massimo D'Ambrosio, who I don't think we've discussed yet either.
No, we haven't.
No, we need to get to him.
Maybe let's talk about the Italian stallion who's clearly not in love with northwest Melbourne. He wants to move over to the eastern side of the city.
Well, he probably wants to get a game. Can you blame him?
We pulled him out of the gutter.
Oh.
Well, the VFL, it's the same thing, right?
Okay.
And he's turned his back on us.
Well, but you know, he wants to play. Not in the gutter. He doesn't want to play in the gutter.
You've got to be a decent player to play AFL. He's still learning this stuff. But anyway, D'Ambrosio, what can we get for him? I mean, I wouldn't have thought anything more than a third rounder.
Well, this is another really interesting one because we have never seen a mid-season draftee traded before, I'm fairly sure. So it's a lot of the time with trade prospects, you look at where they finished up in the draft. It's happening right now with the Bulldogs and St Kilda. They're trying to get Liam Henry and Nick Caulfield and matching them up together because they both finished in the top 10. So they're both worth around the same value-wise from a draft pick perspective. With Massimo D'Ambrosio, there's nothing you can really get to improve your mid-season draft hand. So it's all about quality, and it's another really interesting one because he's got a Rising Star nomination to his name. He's played fairly regularly in his first 2 seasons, but he's requested a trade after just 1 full year on our list. So putting a price to his name is really tricky. With the Doro, I'm going to say it's a late first rounder this time.
Well, take Doro, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if we could get a late first rounder for Massimo. No offense, Massimo.
He's a good kid.
There's the door. He's a lovely kid. I'm not saying he's not a lovely kid.
A kick. Oh, and he's a lovely kid.
Oh, he's a good kick, yeah.
Come on.
Well, that's the thing. Is that,
that's right.
No, I don't think we're going to get too much sleep if he leaves, to be honest with you. No, I'm sorry.
I'd like him in the club.
I'm going to lose a little sleep.
Yeah, I would have liked. We offered him a contract as well. That always helps with negotiations because we wanted to stay. But I like him. I think.
Was it a 1 year contract? Was it
It was a 1 year contract.
Harry Jones type contract, or I noticed the Bombers are handing out a lot of 1 year contracts at the moment. I think
good on them.
Which I think is a good
on them. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I think that's probably to allow Matt Rosa next year to make a lot of decisions on his own under the guidance of Dodoro in his first year. So there's players like I wouldn't have thought Harry Jones would have got a 1 year contract. I thought, a young key forward who showed a lot of promise in his first season would have got 2.
Yeah. What if he comes out next year, kicks 50 goals and his contract expires at the end of the year? Well done, Thomas. Good on you.
It's a 6 year deal.
I would have risked 2 years with Harry Jones, seriously.
Would you?
Yeah,
no, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have.
For sure.
No.
But it's a good thing you mentioned that as well, because the fact that Massimo D'Ambrosio requested a trade to Hawthorn while he's off contract, it means that they hold all the cards because they are fully prepared to let him walk to the preseason draft because they have the 3rd pick in that draft. West Coast aren't going to pick Massimo D'Ambrosio. North Melbourne probably won't want to pick up a kid that doesn't really want to go there. They can just let him walk to the draft.
Picks, of course they won't. Yeah.
So we might be asking for a first rounder, but Hawthorn will want to pick in the hundreds because they know that they can let him walk to the draft and they'll probably get him. So what we get from Massimo D'Ambrosio is probably going to be a lot lower. I look at someone like Toby Bedford, who was traded from Melbourne to GWS for pick 44. He played about 15 games in the season that he was traded. Similar age to D'Ambrosio, young, promising, hadn't shown it all yet, but traded for pick 44. I would be surprised if Massimo is gone for a pick before then, especially because Hawthorn have, I think, pick... where are we? They have picks. Here we go. They have pick 49, which is going to go into the 50s. I think that's probably the best place to start.
Probably.
So it won't be a good pick for Massimo, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think we just got to, the satellite link is looks like it's going to be running out shortly.
Yes.
Have you lost me? Or?
No, we're just about the satellite connection.
It's just
the long piece of wire between the two jam cans.
Yes.
We should probably wrap up now, but we may come back to Felix for more discussion on this very exciting period of the year for us Bombers.
Yes, I think we'll. I think we need to do that. We could have spent a bit more time wrapping up, but I think we'll cover that next time.
That's because of your cheap Zoom subscription.
Don't play. It wouldn't let me upgrade, for the love of God.
And we've got the money rolling in now.
Exactly. It's all the sweet coin. But we might come back to Felix.
So Felix, if it's okay with you,
draft time.
How about the trade week is coming up in the next few days. So I think we may reconvene if you do have the time. It would be so good as to share some of that with us. We'd love to sort of get an update as we go through the trade period. This is just a little taster. So hopefully you've got some free time amongst your very busy schedule to join us one more time. And so with that,
are you up for that? Or, I won't put you under the spot. You can just tell us.
Oh, of course. I'll be back here. Yeah, I'm keen.
You can have your lawyers send us through the contracts. And,
of course.
Exactly.
We'll have our people look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in demand.
Of course he is. There's no question. You know why? Because he gets to the point in his videos.
He does get to the point, doesn't he?
It's content.
Yeah.
Straight to the content.
And he kind of knows what he's talking about.
That has been highlighted today.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was a good idea. This might backfire on us.
I don't think our viewers have ever come to us for hard-edged information.
That's probably.
I think they go to Everything Essendon.
Yeah, that's right. They go to him first. Okay, you get your sustenance.
Yep. And they want a little dessert at the end.
They want a potato cake.
Yeah.
All right.
Felix.
Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We've learnt so much.
Thank you guys.
Today. And we look forward to reconvening as we go through the trade period and possibly even the draft as well.
Yep.
If you get back from LA, from Hollywood, in time for that.
Yes, of course. I'll be seeing you guys very soon, and throughout the many years that we're all recording, I'll be in Melbourne doing it in person as well. So keen to work with you guys more.
Fantastic. That'd be excellent.
Upgrade the set, won't we?
This we're not going to fit here.
All right,
I'll just squeeze in between.
Thank you for your service today, and we look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.
Much
appreciated.
No worries. See you later. Thank you.
Bye. So that was Felix from Everything Essendon, and I've got to say, our ratings are going to go through the roof.
Yeah, it's going to help. It can't hurt.
It's going to help a lot.